on the border. How do you break up with your friend? I know there's no use to confront her, but how do you say this is the end? I'm through being taking it for granted. And the one you call when nobody's home. Being with you means just disappointment. And last escape, so I've been told. Don't bring that bummer to my door again, my friend. You know that you've been crying wolf too many times for this time. I know it. Been there, I've done that. Those words are just sand in my ear. So talk if you like. The words will be words till you bring them to life. So talk if you like. The words will be words till you bring them to life.
That is Talk, Talk, Talk by Saint Michael featuring Anya Gold. Welcome to the show. This is Let's Catch Up with Mike and Mike. I am your host, Mike Vatter, and this is my handsome co host, Mike Groger. And this is our lovely guest for the hour, Angel Russell, aka Professor Sex. What?
Welcome.
So I have
I'm
to go
so
off.
heavily caffeinated.
Yes, we're all heavily caffeinated
Oh
because
yeah,
this week has been
and sugar high.
oh my god, yeah, sugar high, election high.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
Here's my attempt at election shirt.
yes, I love that. Oh
I'm
my
wearing blue velvet. You can't really see, but like, isn't it great?
god, yes. Show us California and Maine. Oh my god,
Your subscribers are gonna go up.
yeah, exactly. Well, Mike was flexing his California and
And his Maine.
Well, I said I was
Carolina.
working on them, but they're still movable.
Well, if you can move them without your hands, then you worked
No,
out
not yet.
I can't. I
No.
can't.
Well, I meant Mike, but yeah, or
Yeah.
Well, no, I was just wondering if I could too, and I was
Yeah.
and then I tried, and you didn't see it, which means I can't.
right. Exactly.
I,
Too funny. Well, welcome to the show.
I have a family member that can.
Oh, really?
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's impressive.
He's very proud of it too.
I would be.
Yeah.
I would show
Right?
everyone. I would make everybody deeply
Watch
uncomfortable to be
this.
like, look what I can do.
I can do tassels, but yeah. Anyway,
You can?
I'm not going to, but I can. So okay.
In that area or that area?
Oh, I've never tried in that area.
Well,
I don't
who
know what-
doesn't? Everybody does
Wait, so
helicopter.
you can do tassels like
Where would you attach tassels down? I mean,
No, like
where?
helicopter.
I mean, I
just
know
one
where-
tassel, singular.
Okay, one. Okay, I was like, I know where you would attach the tassel. How would you attach the tassel is the question.
I assume there would be like a ring involved of some
Oh,
yes.
kind.
Okay.
It would be like
Yes.
a contraption.
I
It
was
wouldn't
thinking
be
like
like
a
a
clip.
pasty.
This is the best person to be asking too.
Yes.
I-
Okay, so with the nipples, there's clamps or clips or suction.
Or like suction sticky.
Is it section?
Yeah. What would
Okay.
you use on your? Would it be?
You'd have to get crafty. I feel like you would
Yeah.
use
Or on the
like a
tip?
C-ring and you would just put the
Okay.
tassels. You know, it'd be really cool. It's less like tassel and more like fringe, like cowboy fringe, and then just make yourself like a fringe C-ring with like
Oh my God!
tassels
Stop
in.
talking because we're gonna invent this and sell it.
Someone's gonna steal our idea.
We'll sell them on Professor Sex's website.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And there'll be little ketchup bottles with our logo.
It'll be perfect.
But I
somebody
mean,
else-
if you had a tassel, you just tie it around the. Not, I mean,
You'd want to do a C-ring
head
because if you
ring.
tied it, you wouldn't want to accidentally make like a little tourniquet. That would be tough.
we'll
So
let
you would
well,
want
no.
to.
I
somebody
mean-
else can invent them. I don't care about that. We'll just make them with our logo so that we can sell them for our purposes.
yeah.
We'll just
Well,
protect them.
We are putting a store up on the site when we do the new launch. So
Oh, okay. So that's a perfect segue. Let's talk about
Yeah.
the
Let's talk
website.
about sex.
Yes.
Talk about
Let's
sex,
talk about
baby.
sex, baby.
people don't sing that to me nearly as much as I thought they would when I started doing this.
Okay, so I put it on our Facebook.
So
page.
why?
Real quick. Last week we were supposed to have you on, but we had technical difficulties. and
On all fronts.
Like it was just a shit show.
But you know what? It's meant to be. It was just like because so Mike had a technical difficulty on his end, Angel, I'm pointing like I know on your screens it's different, but
Yeah.
on my screen this is the way it looks. On
Yeah.
Angel's end, her cable or her internet went out, and then you had a back problem, and then
Oh, my back was bonkers.
Mike's truck died, which we ended up talking about on last week's episode anyway. And
No, I
then
had the new car by then.
oh, that's right. So I forget. But anyway, everyone had issues, and then my power went out for like I don't know, like 10 minutes. It was like not even a big deal, but we had all these issues.
Yeah.
It was a full moon for
It
sure.
was the blue moon.
It was the blue moon.
The blue moon ended up being a blue election, so we are very happy about that. And it looks like the Senate may end up flipping if Georgia goes our way. So anyway,
Don't jinx it.
I know I'm not gonna.
I know, right?
Hey, you know
Well,
what?
hey, can we just throw in before since
Yeah.
bringing up election? I mean, first thing, we're shiny squirrel. I mean, so we're like all over the place on
Yes.
talking about issues of anything. Right?
I know we're already
Right.
distracted. But go ahead. What were we gonna say, Mike?
Excuse me, because I just had French toast without syrup and coffee. How can you have French
Blasphemy.
toast without syrup? What is wrong with me?
Yeah. Are you punishing yourself for something? Did you do
No,
something
I
bad?
thought
Why would you have
funny.
French
It's
toast
funny.
without syrup?
One of my best friends is over here spending the night, and I wanted to make French toast and be all cool. And I ran to the grocery store to grab a couple of extra things, and then thinking
Forgot syrup.
they have syrup. And when I went to get it out of the cabinet, it was not there. So
Did you have like powdered sugar or honey or anything, or you
I
just
had
basically
honey.
ate like egg bread for breakfast?
but it was still good because the way I make it, yeah, that's essentially
And how did that?
both of you with your glasses and your shame and judgment.
I'm judging you a little because it sounds very sad.
Well, I mean, I was judging me. I was like, oh my God, I run to the store. After I made one, I was like to my friend, I said, should we eat one just to see if we can make it through? And
As a dinner.
but I mean, I make it with vanilla and with cinnamon and coconut almond milk. I put in with the mix and then soak it. And it was
It's egg bread.
Is this something you
So,
wanted to
it
talk
was
about,
okay.
or did you distract yourself again?
Totally. God. What was I?
Election. He said something about the
Yes.
election, and then you
Oh,
like
Damn it.
Yeah,
You didn't
French
the
distract
whole
yourself.
thing. Yeah. So the whole thing about the possible
Senate
rig
stuff?
election.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's talking about, well, not Trump talking about it possibly being rigged. I mean, who would allow Mitch McConnell?
yes.
Right. Yes.
That's the biggest point. Any lawyer would say that, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the
their
singular
right
argument. If we're gonna
mind.
rig it, how did that
Yeah.
turtle make it through?
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you say turtle?
Yeah. Doesn't he look like a turtle
Calling
face?
him too.
Yeah, he looks like a turtle face.
Turtle head. Yeah.
He looks like an ancient what are the Galapagos Island what are they called? The tortoise.
Yeah, the bit. Yes, that's what
Yeah.
he looks like. I expect him to look out of a shell.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. He looks like a cartoon tortoise.
Yes.
The one from Dr. Seuss, Myrtle. No, Yertle. Yertle the turtle.
Poor Myrtle's not here to defend himself. So
Yertle the ancient
But-
turtle.
Yertle Myrtle.
You know how they come up with, well, Trump comes up with names. Now it could be Myrtle Mitch.
Moscow.
That's
Mitch.
now what
Moscow
I will be
Mitch
calling
is
him.
Yertle.
No one will get it.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I agree. No, we would not have, if we could rig an election, we would not have left. Maybe what's her name in Maine? Maybe what's her name? Susan Collins. Maybe Murkowski, because they are kind of swing votes. But and maybe
No. Well, I mean, Murkowski maybe, but Collins, she was so wishy-washy on all of her answers. What she came through on, I thought she was gone. I thought she was a goner.
But I will say this, and I'm gonna grab something.
Mm-mm. Sorry, my dog is here. And
Susan Collins
Bye-bye.
was one of the first
Wow.
to vote in favor of
Marriage
LGBT
equality?
rights.
Wow.
One of the very
Okay, I didn't
first.
know that.
This was in 2008. She was one of the first to vote in favor of gay rights.
All right. Well,
So I think we would have left her, she's not always on our team, but when she is, she's full throated. So no pun intended.
Puns should always be intended, Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
puns should always be intended. Yes. But speaking of intended puns and full throated, I think we would have left Lindsey Graham.
Full throated. Love it.
We would have left Lindsey Graham in too, but I don't know that.
Yes. Poor Miss Lady G.
But we would not have left Mitch
No.
McConnell in under any
And
circumstance.
Turtle.
Nor Lady G. She
And no, I don't know.
yeah, she needed to go.
Yeah.
And I wish all of the escorts would have come out hardcore.
I know. There were so many people that were writing books and tell-all pamphlets about their experiences with Lindsey Graham in gas station restrooms. I think that would have, yeah. Anyway.
And we don't want to shame people who are having
No.
adventurous sex. Well, and that's what happens, right?
No.
Is it a response to the way that they shame people, and like you're
Exactly.
shaming
Yes.
people for this behavior, but sometimes what you see is folks who take it too far, and like it turns into, it's so hard to find that balance between maintaining sex positivity and calling out hypocritical behavior.
Right.
Like it's such it's like you really walk the line when that stuff comes up.
I'm really glad that
Very
you brought
good
that
point.
up.
Very
I'm
good.
really glad you brought that up because I have an issue with people who post pictures of Donald Trump and Lindsey Graham in drag, obviously photoshopped, and
Yeah.
make gay jokes about them, or make jokes about them, engaging in gay sex, or saying things about how they're sucking each other off behind the Capitol building to get
Yeah.
votes.
That's taking it too far.
But my point is that I have a problem with it because it is crossing that line almost into gay bashing, into
Yes.
verbal gay bashing, but
And then it comes back on us.
it's usually gay men who are making those jokes.
Yeah.
Right.
But
It's called
I also
internalized
look at it
homophobia.
as, I think back to high school when it's usually the closeted gay men who are making fun of the out gay men. So
the gayest.
it's I'm trying to figure out the way to say this, so you guys help me out. It's the best way, the worst way, the most insulting way to cut to the core, cut to the quick, is to hurt somebody with the insult that's going to get to them the fastest.
Yes. And so the idea is that if Trump doesn't like gay people and we call him gay, that will hurt.
Right.
But what we're doing is also feeding into this narrative that that's an insult.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's so many valuable things to pick on him about. There's so
Yeah.
many meaningful things that he's done that are horrible that we can spend time on, that when we do things like body shame him or shame the weird sex stuff he's into, or equate use jokes that would be gay bashing in another context, it's just not helpful, and it's funny.
Yeah.
And but it's also in group, out group. Where are you making the joke?
Right.
If it's me and a bunch of my queer friends and we're all hanging out at the house and we're drinking and we're having a good time and it's in that space, the jokes that we have a right to make are much different than the jokes that that are appropriate and meaningful and helpful to post as a meme on the internet. Do you know what there's that context.
It's an insult to him, so it's an insult about him.
Yes.
Yeah. So I posted something the other day that said the only way Trump's going to get to 270 is if he loses 50 pounds. But that's because he lied and had his doctor lie, saying that he weighed 170 and was 6'3".
No, it was he's 6'3" and weighed either 20 something or 240 something, and I'm I'm 6 foot and I weigh 225 and I've got pounds on me.
Right.
There's a big difference between 6'3" and the way he is shaped.
Well, first of all, he wears lifts.
And I'm not. He what?
he wears lifts. To make him
in his shoes. He wears
I
lifts.
didn't know
That's why he's
that.
always leaning forward, because he's got lifts in his shoes.
He wears lifts.
I actually thought that was because there's been speculation and the speculation that I've read wasn't shaming him. It was something about, I don't know if it was
there's a type of dementia that can cause
problem.
Right. But if you look, there are pictures of his shoes where it looks like he's wearing they're called Cuban heels, like the dance shoes that do that lift. But also his niece in her book, Mary Trump, she writes about how he's worn lifts in his shoes almost his entire adult life to give him an extra inch or inch and a half of height. And so he wears lifts. That's, we take her to know, well, she knows what she's talking about. So he wears lifts. He lies about his weight and his health. We know about that. So it's not, to me, that doesn't come across. That's not a body shaming thing. That's he lied about it. We're
We're
calling him
calling
out
you
on it.
out.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah, a
I
call out,
If he
on
owned
a
his weight,
real,
if he owned
actual.
his size,
but he,
like Lizzo or or me, I'm a big guy. I'm a bear. I embrace my size,
but that's okay. Okay, but let's talk about like cultural differences there. Okay.
Yeah.
So like social acceptability, like in especially like you talk about like you're a bear.
Yeah.
There is like a that is a desirable quality in your community. Like
True.
that is like gay men have sexualized that body type and have created desirability around that body type in a way that creates like freedom. And that is not a freedom that straight men get to take advantage of unless they're willing to shed some of their preconceived notions about what masculinity is.
That's true.
So this idea that it's when we talk about things like we say like toxic masculinity hurts everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's this idea Trump is a walking like cartoon of toxic masculinity.
Right.
He has all these ideas in his head of what a man should be, and to the point that he's insecure about the size of his hands and his weight, things that don't matter at all.
Right.
Like did you like you see the way that women like women that are like Trump supporters like throw themselves at him, like they find him sexy. So these insecurities, they're all in his head.
Yeah.
He has no reason for them. Like there are people who look at him and are just like dropping panties, which is, I don't get it, but it's there. Yeah. And I say that to say like it's, and like Lizzo, you brought up too, like desirability for full figured bodies in Black communities and communities of color is very different, where white women don't share that same, like they don't get to take advantage of that same, like, you know what I mean? So it's, you talk about like,
I think it's also important to point out, and shifting away from Trump to body whatever, I don't know, body acceptance, like Adele. Yes. I think Adele was gorgeous at her heaviest, and also she's gorgeous now at her thinnest. Mm-hmm. But I love that people, especially Black lesbians that I know, who said she better still sing fat.
Yes, it's like a soul thing.
Yes, yeah. It's like an Aretha Franklin, Shaka Khan soul sound that she has, that we identify with a full-figured Black woman sound. Mm-hmm. That Adele...
look at Jennifer Hudson when she lost that weight, and oh my God, I think for both Adele and Jennifer Hudson, compared to some of these other people who have just taken it for granted, their gift, rather than continuing the perfecting of it. Adele and Jennifer Hudson, I think, continue to work on mastering their ability, because Jennifer Hudson just blows my mind.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Blows my mind. And Adele, she's still...
But yeah, like the way that people, like when Adele came out after having lost all that weight, and it was such a story, like, oh, look at Adele, she's skinny. Like, again, like, why? Okay.
Well, people were shocked.
Let her be her. She's well, what I think maybe the confusing part is that she looked older when she came out than she was. And and when I say older, I mean mature and together, rather than a really young person that's come out and singing. Like when she put maybe that's just my perception, but when she was putting the age on her albums, it was like, I didn't realize she was that young, and to have such a booming voice.
Yeah. Well, also fat fills wrinkles, and I don't mean that in a negative way.
No, it does.
But you look at somebody like I'm trying to think of a male equivalent, like I don't like John Goodman. When he lost a bunch of weight, it aged him 20 years. he looks thinner when he's heavy. He looks thinner. He looks younger when
Younger.
he's heavier and older when
Yeah.
he's thinner. I mean, I saw a still of him. I don't watch the new the Connors, that the new show he's on, but I saw a still of him the other day, and I thought, oh my God, he looks 70. And then I
Yeah.
looked at the age, and I thought, oh, he is almost
He
70.
is 7.
He
He
looks
should,
But
70,
he,
yeah,
yeah.
be.
but when he was 20 pounds heavier, he looked 40.
Yeah.
He looked 50.
It does make a difference. Well, I even look at like so I used to pre back injury in a past life. I managed a yoga studio. I was a yoga instructor in Georgia, and so I was working out like 10 hours a day because that was like my job. So I was always in a gym, and so my body looked a lot different because that's like what I was doing. I was
Yeah.
eating differently. Like my whole life was different. And I look back on like pictures of how I looked then, and like I did look older. Like my face was like there were a lot more wrinkles apparent. I just looked I didn't realize it at the time, but when I compare, I'm like, oh yeah, it did age me. Like it wasn't bad. It was just something I noticed, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing to point out. And so then I started noticing it in other people, like you're talking about, like, oh
Yeah,
wow,
I think it's one of those things. I think size and age, and I say this from the perspective of, like you said, I'm a gay man who is in lucky enough to be in a relationship of 25 years, married for 5 years, and in a group that it is a sexually desirable for whatever reason. It's okay to be a big man. Um, I say this with all that privilege of, age and size don't matter. They're just numbers. And
yeah,
and kind of who cares? And
yeah,
do I
that's
do I love the number that's on the scale? No, but I also kind of don't care about it,
yeah,
you know? And when I do get that shame sometimes when, like, I went with my dad to the Mayo Clinic because he has a heart condition, and I'm adopted, so doctors don't always look at me and think, they look at my dad and think, oh, he's shorter than me and he's skinnier than me, and they think, how did that make this, but they don't realize that I'm adopted. But they say things about my dad's health and his exercise, and they look at me and they go, yeah, big guy, you gotta watch what you eat. And I'm like, first of all, genetics. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. First of
thank you
all,
for the
genetics.
unsolicited advice.
Yeah. First of all, genetics. Second of all, a lot of this is intentional. So thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could bench press my dad. Like, yeah, he could never bench press me. But but then I look at my biological parents, and I'm like, yeah, I come by this naturally in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But that aside, I do get that shame from people who don't get that. They
Yep.
shame me, with unintentionally shame me. But so I don't love that the scale goes up, especially during COVID.
Oh my
But I think
God.
that's part of during, with Adele, she went into a recluse kind of hiding, unintentional maybe, at the beginning of the pandemic, being the big voluptuous Adele we knew, and came
And then
out of it,
emerged.
it came out of it, a kind of a lollipop shape, and we all went, "What happened?" But she'd been through a major breakup. She'd been
Right.
through hiding, and people
Yeah.
thought, "I hope this." Like for me, my thought was, "I hope this was an intentional weight loss. I hope it's
Yes.
not
I the
depression.
same thing. Like, is
I
this
hope it's not
depression that we're
cancer."
seeing, or
Yeah,
is this?
right. Yeah. Does she have cancer? Does she have, is it depression? But once she said
Yeah.
it was intentional, it was like, "Hey, good for you. If this is what you
Exactly.
want." Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well,
Yeah.
I want to talk about, because we started to, and then we segued, like Mike said, shiny squirrel.
I
I
have
want to talk about,
ADD, so I get it.
yeah. Well, Mike has ADD and OCD. I have OCD. You've got ADD, so we're all over the place, and that's why this show is fun, because we don't have any topics. We do, but we act like we don't, or we think we don't. So there's a reason this logo is up behind me, Professor Sex, or Professor Sex Xavier.
Thank you.
I want you to explain that. I want you to explain Professor Sex Xavier's
But
School for Gifted
I just
Sex
okay, like
Addicts.
I love the like when I discovered that. So I was actually like a big DC Comics person as a kid,
Oh, I have
mostly
Marvel.
because
Sorry.
Dean Cain as Superman just really did it for me. And so
Oh.
I was
But he's
like,
a Trumper now.
"Shh." I didn't say still. I didn't say
Yeah.
still. I just,
'Cause,
as a
yeah, I was
child,
into him too.
as a young person, he was very pretty. And
Yeah.
so
Oh,
it
yeah.
was Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher really turned me on to DC Comics in a very,
Right.
My little bisexual baby self was like, this is shiny. So these very pretty people. And so but I had always been a little bit into Superman, always into Batman. So I did DC Comics as a kid, just out of sheer, like, this is fun. And so I encountered X-Men later in my life, and I'm not an I like, people want to dig into like deep X-Men lore. Like, I can't get that far into it. I just have, I haven't had the time, but what that meant to me was there was a lot of queerness, like a lot of what the X-Men represented to me, and was othering, and this sense of like embracing your space as the other, and this sense of like organizing around that identity, and this sense of like working through the shame of being othered, and working through the like emotional labor of being different than the people around you, and how people treat you, and dealing with the people who either like objectify you or reject you or whatever. And so watching the journey of these people, it just resonated with me. And so when I started, a lot of the sex education that I do, and a lot of the research that I did in graduate school, a lot of what my passion has been about destigmatizing variety, destigmatizing marginalized identities and marginalized behaviors, destigmatizing I think variety is the best thing. Like, I don't like the phrase alternative sexuality, because like, alternative to what, right? Like,
Right.
it's the sense of like dethroning heterosexuality as this norm. And so I really wanted to exalt folks who existed in the space of like the other, and whether that was based on identity or based on behavior, or based on like kind of the way those things intersect, that was really important to me. And so the X-Men reference felt like a really powerful way to sort of own that, because I was like, how do I just put a stamp on like, this is what we're celebrating the other. And that's to me, the X-Men was always a celebration of the other, and like, and an acknowledgement of like that like hero's journey, you know? And so when I see my clients go through this, I see the people in my communities go through this same kind of process of dealing with rejection, and dealing with stigma, and dealing with being othered, and learning to recognize their identities as a superpower, and as a sense of like, oh wait, I exist in this space, and this makes me awesome, not, you know? And so, yeah, so that's what Professor Sex was. It started as just this like celebration of the other. But I've been teaching sex ed for like 9 years, but Professor Sex has only been maybe 3 years. So I started Professor Sex while I was in graduate school. It's because I was sharing all this sex content, like sex ed content, on my regular Facebook, and my friends and family were like, ew. And so like I think I think I needed to like put it in its own space so people could opt in or out of like interacting with it. And so that's Professor Sex just became like the space where all that lived. So yeah.
So let's talk about your go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was going to ask, I mean, there's when you're talking about people who are recognizing the fact that they, you know, what's right words? I'm losing words. I guess where I really want to go to with the question is when the heterosexual community, behind closed doors, and you know, engage in whatever they want to engage in. You know what I'm saying? So then their shame then is projected on people like us who are
Openly.
more open, and I don't want to say I'm perfectly comfortable with everything still yet, because I mean, and my friend and I earlier were talking about this of you know, just, you know, shame, you know, when you're younger, and how some things stunt you and carry with you until you get through it, right?
Yeah.
So but I know so many people who in heterosexual relationships who have thirds, or, you know, toys or whatever, and engage in a sexual behavior that they seem to put out there and project as offensive or bad, and that they think we do, and sometimes I'm not even having sex.
I was gonna say, if you only knew how boring.
I'm more boring than they, you know. So I mean, my question to you is, in your studies, I mean, did you come across a lot of that? And I mean, what have you uh, come across? Not come across, but I mean, you. It sounds like you've like really uh, delved into that and kind of learned about people's behavior. So,
Yeah. So that's actually what drove me into sex ed in the first place. So I started sex ed. I was married to a Navy guy who was gone all the time, and I had these two little kids, and I was supposed to go to law school. And my daughter got an autism diagnosis, and she was very small. And I was like, I can't go to law school with a husband who's not home and a child who has autism. Like, I need to be able to focus on this. So my daytimes were kind of taken up with like kid stuff, and so I needed something I could do at night, and still be present during the day. And so I started doing those in-home sex toy parties. And it was at the time, it was just like, I can say penis with a straight face and I can sell ice to Eskimos. So this will be great. And like, you don't even have to be good at sales to sell sex toys. Like, they sell themselves. You're like, you turn it
right.
on and people are like, I'm in. And so it was very easy. And I started doing really well at it. But what also happened was people, because at the time I was working for an organization that only really catered towards cis women. And so I was in this room with women, and women who had never been given permission to like talk about their sex lives openly. Or so you talk about that openness, that openness wasn't there. In fact, a lot of these women were telling their families they were going to Tupperware parties, and there was this like secret code of like, it was like this speakeasy of like sex, and like, and it was great. And but all the knowledge I had was like, how many functions does this toy have, and what kind of discount can I give you? Like, and like, what lube goes with it? Like, I didn't have like knowledge of sexuality and relationships. So we do the parties open, and then you get into this place called like the ordering room, and people order privately so that they can have some discretion.
Right.
But they get in the ordering room, and it's like 10% about what product they want, and 90% them like gushing their sex lives to you, or their relationship issues, or they want to know if they're normal because they want this thing, or this thing is coming up for them. And all of a sudden I'm like, it's like being in a confessional, and I'm not a priest. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm taking in all this information, and I feel so underqualified to support these. So I'm just holding space and going like, I don't know, I'll send you a link if I find one. And so I started digging and digging for more education. And fast forward like a while, and I ended up just going back to graduate school and doing the things I needed to do. And now I'm a certified sex educator. And
Wow.
I my graduate research is in psychological science, but I studied how people integrate their behaviors into their sexual identity.
Uh-huh.
And so, because that was the thing, is you had these people who were like, I'm a straight, but I'm really interested in this weird thing.
Right.
And I think we associate the weird thing with queer folks for the reason that, okay, so if being straight is the norm, right? Like, and I say the norm in terms of like, that's the social narrative. The social
Right.
narrative is that you're straight. And that's why straight people don't have to come out, because that's the assumption.
Yeah.
So all of the scripts we have around relationships and sex are geared towards straight people who are making babies. So if you are having any type of sex or any type of relationship that is outside of that nuclear family baby making like agenda, anything outside of that starts to feel weird. Well, for queer folks, none of that script applies to us. So as much as there's the battle of stigma, we talk about like that hero's journey, we have to deal with stigma. We also get this freedom of interacting without script. So we get to make it up as we go. So
Yeah.
we get to like engage and take the privilege of the full like range of human imagination when it comes to sex. So when you talk to, and that doesn't mean that every queer person is having weird sex, but when we talk about like sexual adventure and we talk about sexual variety, a lot of that is coming from queer communities.
Yeah.
Because queer communities were always allowed to break the narrative because the narrative never applied to them in the first place. And so when you have straight folks who start seeing an interest in that, they get this fear. Oh, if I like that, does that make me queer?
Exactly.
And then all the social homophobia and all the internalized homophobia comes up, and all the fear of being othered comes up because they know how they treat other people and they know how awful they can be. And now they're worried that script is going to get flipped. And so, yeah, that battle is actually what drove me into this in the first place, was like, let's pull my new podcast that I'm working on, and I haven't launched it yet, but it's called Sex Ed Speakeasy, because the whole idea is like, let's peel back that curtain. Let's stop treating these things like they're secrets. It turns out that behind closed doors, we're all a lot more similar than we are different.
Absolutely. I love
Did that even
and
answer your question? Was that
Yes, totally. I'm like,
I love that, and
I'm
I love
loving it.
that. I want to put your logo
Yeah.
back up too, so people can see if they missed it the first time
And
around.
I love the title of the podcast. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it yeah, I love it. It's great.
I I love the way you explain that, and I also because um, a lot of straight people will ask, why do we keep adding letters to the queer acronym? The LGBTQIA, blah
plus
blah
plus
blah blah
plus
blah.
plus? Mhm.
Right,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because and I say, well, they're like, well, what is the Q? What's the questioning? Isn't everyone questioning? And I'm like, yeah, at some
Maybe.
point, yeah, maybe. They're like, well, what is I forget. There's another one people always ask about. They're like, but why is it so encompassing? Because the normal isn't.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
why are there so many people in the queer community? Because they're not allowed anywhere else.
Yes. They don't have a seat at any other table.
Yeah.
I get into this. Okay. So the fight that, and I'm gonna tell people right now, don't even send me your nasty letters. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, and it's gonna be it. The fight I get into about this is when people bring up polyamory and kink, and they want to fight that poly and kink don't make you queer. Okay. So let's break this
Wait,
down.
say that again. Poly and
That being
kink.
being polyamorous or being kinky does not make you queer.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's talk about how we're using the word queer. Being polyamorous does not make you gay.
Mm-mm.
Being polyamorous does not make you LGBT.
Right.
Being kinky does not make you LGBT.
Right.
But what is queer, right? So let's have a talk about if we're talking about queer in terms of the way we other people, because that's all queer means. It just means
Exactly.
other.
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about, and my literature degree was in queer theory, this is I will die on this hill. Does being poly and kinky make you gay? No, that's a different table. You may not have a seat at that table, and that's okay. But in terms of queerness and in terms of a community and needing a home where you have a safe space to be into your weird shit and to live your relationship. And I say weird shit because I'm weird. And I get to say it because I it's an in-group term, right? Weird. Right. So all the weirdos can be weird. But having a safe space, I'm not about to gatekeep people
Right.
who are looking for a safe space. So if you've got folks in, if I'm in a polyamorous relationship, there is an inherent level of queerness to that behavior.
Mhm.
There just is. Whether or not that impacts my personal sexual orientation is a different discussion, but there is a level of queerness because of the way it subverts the norm. If I am kinky, openly kinky, I'm not talking about people who throw handcuffs in the bedroom once in a while. I'm talking about people who are identifying in that space, who live their lives in that community. That is an inherent level of queerness. Is it the same journey that a gay man is going through? No. But is it so the gatekeeping around this idea of what queer is, why are we gatekeeping? Why are we not loving each other?
Right. Right.
So if you think of it as queer is a banquet hall, and all those other things are tables within the banquet hall.
Yes.
I like that analogy.
And
I love that.
Straight is a whole different restaurant.
Kind of, yeah. And but I think that's when it starts, because if you think of it like a Venn diagram, right? Let's say our tables at a banquet hall are a little bit of a Venn diagram. So maybe some of the tables touch, right?
Right.
If I'm a straight person, but I'm and I'm not a straight person, but let's just pretend.
Some of them are family style. Some of them are family style booths.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. If I'm a straight person, but I'm in a polyamorous relationship with my husband and his girlfriend and her girlfriend and their lover, right? All of a sudden, my level of engagement, I'm going to come sit at this table with them because they are at this table and we are a family. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there starts
absolutely.
to, yeah. And so that's where I think when as an LGBT community, I think it's deeply important to acknowledge the way that othering based on sexual orientation has impacted folks. But it can be very tempting, and we see this especially from older folks in the community. It can be very tempting to gatekeep people out of it, because it's like, we've worked really hard for this. Don't
Right.
risk it. Don't bring your weird stuff here because you're going to make us look bad. And then people are going to other us even more. And so that's why people fight about like leather at Pride. And that's why people fight. Like, if it wasn't for the leather community and it wasn't for the trans community and it wasn't for like, we wouldn't have Pride. Like,
Right. Yeah.
and so this idea that like, we want to whitewash everything and sanitize everything, it's fear. We're like, it's stripping the like sexuality and that out of it is like totally a fear-based response.
Right.
Because we don't want the society, like, we just don't want to lose any of the ground we've gained. And so then we start gatekeeping, like, please don't bring your weird shit to the table because they're going to kick us out of the restaurant.
Right.
But you know what, and that's very informative, and it gives me a visual that almost like a parallel of gay and straight have of what's considered normal gay and what's considered normal straight. And when you're in that line of whichever, you want the weird stuff to stay away. Right? Does that make sense from just hearing what you're saying and then thinking?
It's all weird.
It's all
I know.
Weird is relative.
Yeah. Exactly, but I mean, you know the people who are in the community who are like, you know, I want to be, you know, the model of gay, and I don't want all this other crap. Just like you were saying, you know, I don't want the leathers. I don't want the people in the thongs up on a bus, you know, driving in Pride. Well, you know, it boggles my mind. I mean, just enjoy the fact that we're all different.
Exactly.
Or the fact that I may look like this, but you don't know what I dress up like, you know, exactly, right? At night or at different places.
Or when I'm just not on a podcast on a Sunday morning.
Right.
Like, yeah.
But to some people, the bus with the thongs hanging on the window is the model of gay.
Exactly.
Yes,
and that's it.
That's the base for
it doesn't take away like if you're so, and this is, I get this, so I teach the sex and gender lecture for intro to psych at UNF, and it's like 200 freshmen, and every year I come in for 2 days and do their like 101 sex and gender. And I'd say like I've done this like, I don't know, maybe, you know, 10 or 12 times. And I'd say like at least half of the times someone at some point has asked me about that phenomenon in gay relationships where one person is the man and one person is the woman. Because heteronormativity is so deeply ingrained in who we are that like people are constantly trying to relate queerness to the standard they're used to. And so it's like, oh, well, which one's the man, which one's the woman? Like, what the hell kind of question is that? But it's because that's the only model I have.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm trying to reconcile.
That's the one that's out there.
Yeah. But then you have queer folks, and we all know them, who work really hard to fit that model because they're so, that stigma has harmed them so much that they're so desperate for being accepted. And so then you have very flamboyant people who buck that model very openly, and it feels like a threat to the acceptance you've worked so hard to get. So I have a lot of compassion for people who are like afraid of the flamboyantness of like living, like of expressing your sexuality in a very big way.
Right.
But also like, catch up, man. You know, like,
well, it's almost like a toxic masculinity on the gay side too,
yes,
as well as it can be on the straight side. But what's interesting is as you see, as I've gotten older, I've realized, because, you know, as a young gay man, I was like, you know, I wanted the relationship and, you know, the long term, especially because, you know, my parents were together for over 50 years. And, you know, my family, it's just kind of ingrained in you that you want to have a relationship that lasts, right? So as a gay man, and especially in the 90s when things were just difficult, you know, I mean, I was scared to stand in line to go to a club, and we didn't have, you know, the apps and everything. That's where you went and met people. I'm getting into a tangent here, but my point being is that when you look at, as I've gotten older, you've realized that people create their own relationships. I mean, I've tried so many different types of relationships: the 3-person relationship, the open relationship, just all kinds of different things. You know, the drug-related sex party relationship. I mean, the monogamy that find out he's cheating in a relationship. You just, I mean, I've tried so many that I'm like, I don't know where I want to go from here. But you look at some straight couples and you'll find the man is effeminate and the woman is the masculine. I mean, and nobody's asking them who's the top or the bottom.
No, but what they're doing is teasing them. Oh, she wears the pants in your relationship.
There you go.
And so those messages hurt everybody.
Yeah.
The reason that we're bucking, the reason that like feminists and queer folks are bucking gender roles isn't because we don't believe that there are differences in gender. Like, of course there are. They're beautiful and wonderful and they're amazing. It's that the way that we ascribe like social roles and we put people in these boxes and then we shame them for not fitting in the box we put them in. My favorite meme is like, it's like anybody who's owned a cat understands this concept. Like, it's one thing to get in a box on your own. It's different when someone puts you in the box. Like, if you've ever put a cat in a box, like, I just like, I'm like, that's it. Like, I'm a cat. Let me get in the box on my own. If I'm in the box, it's fine. But don't put that on me.
Okay, so speaking of cats, okay, so
which I don't have, so I
have 3 inside cats and 2 outside cats, and so I'm definitely a cat person. And my friend Miranda describes her sexuality as, she says, I'm basically a cat, and she's like, I don't want to be touched, I don't want to be approached until I do.
Yep.
That's her sexuality. And I, as the older I get, that I subscribe to that totally. Like, I used to be like Mike,
I'm there too.
Like Mike was saying, I used to be like, I want to go to a club, I want everyone to touch me, I want everyone to be on me, I want to be like half naked on a dance floor. Yep. I want men, women, I want anyone. I mean, there was a comedian, he used to say, treat your body like a temple. And he said, yeah, but I treat mine like a Presbyterian rec center. Like, I want everyone to come and be here. And so I used to think like that. I used to think my body is a Presbyterian rec center. I want everyone to come all hours and just be on me.
Yes.
Now that I'm 43. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, 43. How old am I?
I don't keep count anymore.
There's a point where you just stop.
Yeah, my age is not, my mental age and my physical age are not the same.
Yeah, mine either.
But yeah, I would say 43. Yeah, or as my doctor says, you're pushing 50, and it's like,
don't put that on me. Yeah.
Like, the box I invited you to put me in.
Right.
I'm fine with that. I'm pushing 50, pushing 60, pushing 20. I don't, whatever. I'm a pusher. Anyway, so it's fine. But I'm a cat. I'm definitely a cat. Like, I don't want to be touched. Part of it's my OCD. I get that. I do get that. I don't want to be touched. I don't want to be approached. I don't want to be cuddled. I don't want to have sex until I do. Yep. And when I do, I want it on my terms for the length of time that I want it. You get 3 pets, and then I will scratch you. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's, I'll bite you, I'll scratch you, I will claw your eyes out, and I don't want to be touched again for another year. Like, leave me alone.
No, same. Do you know how much I love social distancing?
Oh my God, I was built for this. I was built for pandemic.
Yes.
I mean, I remember when it was first happening and everybody was like, well, introverts are going to be just fine. Yes.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm cool with it.
I'm an extrovert and I love it. I'm like, this is great. Don't touch me. Don't stand close to me at the grocery store. I don't know you. Get away. Like, I love it.
I'm a good mix. I think the 3 of us are. We're good mixes of we're extroverted introverts or introverted extroverts. Whatever.
It varies on the situation.
Yeah, definitely varies on the situation. So, but my question to you, Angel, Professor Xavier, is is it common for someone's approach to sex like that to change as drastically as it has for Mike and I? You know, for Mike and me and Mike.
Yes.
The 2 of us.
Yes.
As we age or as our lives change, to say, you know, hey, I want all the sex all the time, to go to I don't want any sex ever, or opposite.
Yeah. So a lot of it is sexual desire is basically just your brain responding to or like libido. It's just your brain responding to sexually relevant cues in your environment. And the thing that feeds that process, like hormones feed that process, like
you don't want to know what I just thought of as my sexual.
Is it a
of course, it's the gray sweatpants, right?
Yeah, I'll say it's gray sweatpants season. Exactly.
Right.
But that's such a good example. Like I
Right.
said nudes.
Yeah.
It's
Is
that's
it
such
a
a good
libido
example.
thing though, or is it just a mental? Because libido is a physical thing too.
Libido's mental. It's all mental. Like the physical and the mental are the same. Like your brain is what's driving the process. Like your brain. So basically, like your I'm gonna get like super sciencey for a second.
Do it.
You just
Do
go
it.
along
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
ride with me.
Yeah.
So basically, like the way you process cues is like your brain is constantly scanning your environment for sexually relevant cues, whether you know it or not. It's always happening.
Yeah.
And so you've got like your hot cues and your not cues. The moment when the hot cues overwhelm the not cues, that's like your sexual tipping point, and that's what kickstarts your sexual response like cycle. So that's what makes your pupils dilate and blood go to all the parts of your body, like your nipples and genitals, and that's what makes nerve endings start to go. Like your brain says, oh, it's go time. So if you think of it like a car, the foot on the gas is all the hot cues and the foot on the brakes is all the not cues, and so your car leaves the driveway when you hit the hot cues. Well, so many things can impact what you determine what is sexually relevant to you. So, the things that can impact that process are like hormonal fluctuations can impact that process. So, like decreases in testosterone, which can happen like for anybody, can happen throughout the month, can happen as you age, can happen. There's lots of things that can impact that. So that's one thing. Other things that can shift the way we process cues. Trauma is another thing. So like trauma rewires the way your brain processes cues and rewires what is relevant and irrelevant in terms of sexual cues and other cues too. So trauma rewires your brain. So there's age, experience in other relationships, your love language shifts as you age too, like those things. So I yeah, there's definitely and okay, so that's like one piece of it. The other piece of it is desire is either spontaneous or responsive. Spontaneous desire is gray sweatpants season and I'm go because I just saw the best gray sweatpants ever, right? Like it's like I just saw a thing that is undeniably sexual and all of a sudden I'm flush, right? Like
Right.
that's spontaneous, or it's like waking up and just being horny. Like that's spontaneous desire. It's very quick, it's like a microwave.
Mhm.
Responsive desire is more like a crock pot, right? Like it takes a little time to warm up.
I
You
love
might
these
need like explicit
analogies.
cues. Yeah, like so responsive desire is more like I it might be like I want sex, but my body's like not into this right now. So
Mhm.
maybe I masturbate for a little and I help my body figure out this is what we're doing. Or maybe I turn on a little porn, or maybe I ask my partner to sexy text me for an hour and like I warm up a little bit before it's time to like cook the meal, right? Like and so we what we see in media and in porn is a lot of spontaneous desire,
Uh-huh.
but more people operate with responsive desire because chronic stress and life and age and realistic limitations just impact that process so much that like we don't, even if we have spontaneous desire, there's not a lot of opportunity to reward it.
Right.
And so yeah, like it's just
Or
yeah,
it
so
takes too much time,
yeah.
to get it all put together.
Okay, so real quick, I have to tell the joke that I sent you. You're talking about masturbation. I sent Angel a joke a couple weeks ago. Sigourney Weaver told this joke, and it was just the best. She said, Sigourney Weaver said, she goes, I went to my doctor, and he said, you have to stop masturbating. And I asked why, and he said, because I'm trying to examine you. And okay, so that was funny. And
No,
then
it's great. I
yeah,
laughed so hard.
I was like, this may be inappropriate, but I feel like you'd love this. And she's
The
like, oh my
Jeffrey
god,
Toobin thing all over again.
yeah, right, yeah.
Right.
But okay. Oh, Jeffrey Toobin. So that was yeah. So I want to talk about that too. But before we get to that, I used to go on like Tumblr and like Pornhub
I love Tumblr porn. I miss it.
because it was like okay,
Oh,
I
there's
need
still
to.
stuff on there.
There
Yeah,
is.
it's not the same
It's not
though.
the
Yeah, I
same.
know.
But it
They
used to be
changed
like
quite.
I need to jumpstart the battery, right?
Yeah, just exactly.
But now it's like I'd rather go on Patrick Stewart's Facebook page and listen to a sonnet a day
Mm,
because
that's
that
okay.
that will get me going faster than a visual stimuli.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I don't think it's an age thing, and I don't think it's a libido thing. I think it's just a I
Well,
think I think it's.
go ahead.
I mean, it may be, but to me, those aren't the words I would use.
Yeah, that's
And maybe scientifically that may be what it
yeah,
is.
yeah. But I mean, it's not how you're relating to it. That's fine.
Right. I relate to it as like it's the cat. The cat analogy works better for me. That I'm just like, it used to be a can of tuna, now it's now it's a box and
Some catnip. Yeah.
catnip. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I do want to talk about unless you guys want to stay on this for a second. I want to talk about the Jeffrey Tubin thing.
Well, before we do, I just
Yeah.
wanted to comment that when you're talking about, like, I think at an earlier age when you're like, well, I'll use personal experience. I was more, I guess, my testosterone, sexual desire, whatever, and I love everything that you just said. It almost is like, is everything in life about um uh how you were relating sex? I mean, it just responsive. How did you say? I'm sorry. Um,
Responsive desire versus spontaneous.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, is that how life is in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the only thing your brain is doing, obviously. Your brain's
Right.
number one job is to keep you alive. But
Right.
it's definitely a secondary process. And
Yeah.
sometimes if like keeping you alive part of your brain is like in overdrive, so that's why like trauma is so impactful and we're all in like this big collective trauma. That's why like a lot of people are like noticing shifts in their libido or shifts in their desire because of COVID.
Hmm.
But yeah, sorry, I just like did shiny squirrel on that. I
That's good.
apologize. But yeah, these are normal fluctuations we're talking about. These are very normal things that are happening in people's brains. And I think that I think we have to normalize these shifts. What can happen is you get used to like your body and your brain responding a certain way. And
Hmm.
for whatever reason, when that starts to shift, it can feel like something's wrong with you.
Yes.
And then you start internalizing shame around that shift instead of
Hmm.
recognizing when we talk about sexuality being a part of the whole person and we talk about sexuality being a whole life process and we talk about sexuality being fluid and fluctuating, those are very important things that everybody deserves to be taught and we just aren't. We're very
Right.
much
Right.
taught that like there's this script for what sexuality looks like and it is a part like our brain is constantly processing cues that way.
Yeah.
We're not thinking about it, but it is a whole part of who we are. So when I get up in the morning and I'm having my cup of coffee, I'm still a sexual person. When
Right.
I'm reading my book at night in bed in my old lady pajamas, like I'm still a sexual person. I don't take that off even if I'm not thinking about it and it's not a priority to me and it's not important to me and I'm not identifying that way. I still
Hmm.
have a sexuality. That is still a part of how I move through the world as a human. And so I think that the scripts that we're taught are just too limiting for everybody. And so people deserve to be taught like this is part of your whole life. This is part of who you are as a person. It's going to be like this forever and it will shift and change and be fluid and all of that is okay.
That is the most important part for people to know, and I'm so glad you said that because it's important for me to know because mine has shifted, and it's been both on age, I think, because of learned behavior or just environment, and even getting involved in things that would induce sexual desire that affected that became trauma. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yep.
So then now it's like I'm trying to not rewire, but
You won't know that it's exactly what it's happening.
and adjust to
Mm-hmm.
how I'm not as interested. But I mean, if I'm interested, I'm not as interested, but I can be out there and again using my friend who stayed over. We were out at the wine store, and I see a hot guy, and I'm like, damn, or see somebody and I said, I don't know if I'm attracted or if it's just that I like that body part and think that I would want that, you
Yeah.
know. So what I guess my point is that it's changed, and it's nice to know that while I do feel like, and I know that my testosterone level is lower, so but it creates so many layers that you're overthinking in your head, and I'm getting a little you know depressed about. That I'm not like the other guys who are like, come on, let's do this, do this, and I'm like, I'm not there, and the other thing that I wanted to like touch on real quick, I'm sorry, but I mean, whereas younger, I could get into it faster,
Yeah.
you know, on the quick response. But
Microwave versus crockpot.
Yeah.
but the real way to get to me was through my, you know, my mind, you know, talking to me, you know.
The Patrick Stewart sonnet.
That was a good example. Whew.
What's that? What's
I
that?
thought that Patrick Stewart thing was a good example.
Exactly. I mean, I can't identify with that specifically, but I mean, with somebody who can talk to me, who relates, that builds that's almost like the appetizer to the entree, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Everything you do outside the bedroom is foreplay. Everything you do inside the bedroom is sex.
Yeah.
Like if you think about the way your brain is working, every single thing you do outside the bedroom is foreplay. And it's just what is going to hit that button, what isn't, what's going to hit the buttons and what isn't. It's okay that changes. I think people get so hung up on, is this normal? Or they compare themselves to other people and that is depressing. Or you miss the way you used to be. So much of individual like levels of depression and concern around shifts in sexuality is about comparing now you to past you.
Yeah.
Comparing now relationship to past relationship. So I encourage my clients all the time, let's like take a minute and just look at what we have right now and like really think about like, am I okay with this? And if there's a part of it that I'm not okay with, is it something I have power over or isn't it? And then how do I work through that? Like separating it from this. Cause sometimes if you can just have that shift and say, you know, actually, I'm okay with being a cat. Like
Right.
maybe I used to be like a lab and everybody pet me and I love this. And now I'm more like a cat and I'm like, okay, like I'll pet you. Like, you know, like I'll let you know when I want the pets. Like,
Right.
and if you're missing, if you're like, if you have shifted to cat mode, but your brain is still prioritizing puppy, it can be like it's internalized shame.
Mhm.
Embrace being a cat, love being a cat, find that moment and remember that you always have the power. Like you always have the power. It's always in you. So
Yeah.
I know, Mike, you had things you wanted to shift to. So now we've like
No, that's okay. No, I love
rolled
that.
away.
I love that. It's still about sex. It's just not the same type of, yeah.
I love talking about that.
So recording line is on because my mom and I were talking about Jeffrey Toobin, and so I'm just thinking like Joe Biden is gonna love that his logo is so front and center while we're talking about sex, and my
Poor
mom
guy.
is gonna
I
love
hope
that.
he writes in.
Yeah. My mom is gonna love that I'm talking about her with Jeffrey Toobin and Professor Sex. So Jeffrey Toobin is one of my mom's favorite broadcasters, or was one of my mom's favorite broadcasters.
Bless your mom.
You know, because he's a brilliant legal mind and he's a brilliant broadcaster. And unfortunately now he's unemployed because he exposed himself on a Zoom call and claims he didn't know the camera was on. I get it. If this were February of 2020, I'd give the man a pass. When nobody really understood, people of his age group maybe didn't know how Zoom worked, but it's November of 2020. We've all been using Zoom like every day for like 7 hours a day for a year now. You know how Zoom works. You
For
know
20 years in 1 year. It seems like it's been 20
We all
years
know
in
that
1
little
year.
light on our webcam means it's
that it's on. Also, why are you masturbating on a Zoom call anyway?
Well, maybe he had another window open and there was porn.
Don't.
It's the big thing.
That's like, okay, we're having this right now and I'm watching porn. Why would you do it?
Don't do that.
Right.
I mean, I'd be worried, one, that you could hear it.
Yeah.
Two,
there's just so many. Just don't. You're not
don't.
a 6-year-old. Like, just
No.
don't. Just wait. Your Zoom call will end, and then you.
And
will
that's
get your
shaming
thing.
6-year-olds.
Well, but I mean,
Poor thing.
if you're 6, you're allowed to have the attention span of a fly.
Right.
But like, if you're a grown adult engaging in like activity, like you're working, just like wait. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's one thing to like sneak off into the bathroom and knock one out in the middle of the day. Like that's a different thing. And we can have that conversation another time. But like you're like physically actively engaged in a call. Like what? You had to. That's self-sabotage.
You're
You
in
had to have
front
wanted that to
of
tank.
a camera with a microphone and a recording device, and there's a screen. Like
He wanted. I refuse to believe that he didn't a little bit. It seemed like self-sabotage to me. I
Right.
just can't.
so my example to my mom, and she was like, how could he let that happen? We had just watched the movie Bombshell. Jeff and I had just watched, my husband and I had just watched the movie Bombshell, which is about the sexual harassment thing with Megyn Kelly and Gretchen Carlson at Fox News, right? Which is an excellent movie. I'm not a big fan of any of the people involved, except I will say that, you know, every story, you know, we all wear different masks, right? We all wear different. We're all the villain in someone's story. We're all the hero in someone's story because we wear different masks in different situations. Like at work, we're. What was that?
It was my dog. I was telling him to go to Azkaban. That's his kennel.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm
sorry.
What?
I forgot. I'm sorry.
No,
So
I usually have to do that too, but
that's okay. I was just like, are you telling your
often
kid to go
somewhere.
to prison?
No, I was telling my dog, whose name is Sirius Black.
Yes, I do know that about your dog, but I just didn't connect that you were telling. I was like, that's
I'm sorry. Yeah, he was just trying really hard to interrupt, and then I did it. Sorry.
You're telling your kid to go to the Harry Potter mental facility. I was like, what is she doing?
DCF's gonna show up at the house.
I love it. I keep my kid in a kennel.
I'm blushing. I'm sorry. I thought it was gonna be a lot more subtle than it was.
That was a great aside. Jeffrey Tubin, your microphone's on.
Yeah.
I know. I just Jeffrey Tubin does.
Oh my God, that's gonna become a term. That's great.
I just tubined my child.
I just tubined Zoom.
I just tubined my dog on Zoom. Anyway.
That's gross.
Anyway, the movie Bombshell, it makes, you know, we're all, like I said, we're all the hero or the villain in someone's story, depending on who's telling the story. But the movie makes you very it makes you feel bad for Megyn Kelly and Gretchen Carlson, but in that story they are the victims. They're still vile, evil people in the world of broadcasting, but in the workplace they were the victims. Absolutely. And you know, anyway,
them and others.
Yes, and it does a great job of showing how toxic Fox News and Fox Broadcasting is. But my point in telling that is so I can tell you this: the Jeffrey Tubin relation is. There's a scene where Megyn Kelly takes her lawyer into a radio studio in Fox News, and she's telling him what happened with her and Roger Ailes in his office. She walks into the recording studio, and just like your microphone, Angel, she unplugs the back of the microphone on all three stations in the room before she starts talking to her lawyer. And he goes, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Roger's always listening."
Yep.
And he's like, "What?" He's like, "These mics aren't even live." And she says, "Roger's always listening." And he's like, "Okay, what are you going to tell me?" And then she starts telling about him sexually harassing her. Yeah. If Megyn Kelly, who's never worked in radio in her life, knows that, and she's a TV broadcaster, Jeffrey Tubin knew that there's a chance his Zoom camera is on.
Like,
that's
children
my point.
know how Zoom works at this point.
Like, shut your computer. I mean,
your cat knows.
He does know.
Yeah. Your cat's like, "Hi, I want to be on TV."
He likes the attention. This is Babu.
Hello, baby.
So, but before you leave
for 5 days.
the conversation about Bombshell, I'm just curious, when you were saying that, you know, you didn't care for the people, you're talking about the actual people, not the people that were acting in the
oh no, Charlize Theron was amazing.
Charlize Theron was, oh my God, I was like, is that really Charlize Theron, or is that Megyn Kelly playing Megyn Kelly?
Oh my God, no, the acting
now
was
I have to watch it.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was hard to tell.
Yeah.
Well, I watched was it Morning News, I think is what it was called, or the morning show. It was the Stephen Colbert and Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah. How was that?
Which was basically the
or no, Steve Carell. Steve Carell and Jennifer Aniston. It was the same story basically.
Yeah.
And it was it didn't get great ratings. I really loved it.
That was great. Yeah,
I thought it was going to be
It
amazing.
was on Apple TV, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, and we started getting ads for it when we were flipping through stuff. So I hadn't seen any of the run up to it, but all of a sudden they were like really hounding us with the ads, and I thought it was going to be funny because it was Steve Carell and Jennifer Aniston and like Reese Witherspoon. So I thought it was going to be a comedy. It was not.
No.
But it sounds like Bombshell is very much like a similar story, and now I really want to watch it. But
I also think they and I haven't seen it because I don't have Apple TV, and I was really kind of disappointed that they didn't share stream it somehow.
Apple.
And that would have but that would have gotten it more ratings, right? So but I think they pulled maybe from Bombshell and maybe from the Today Show specifically.
It's very heavy
all
on the
that
Matt.
stuff.
Yeah, it's very heavy on the Matt Lauer story of the Today Show.
They
and they pull a little bit from the Fox News story.
Did you watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they said though, I read about it. They said that it had nothing to do with Matt Lauer. Like they started
Hard to believe that.
I was gonna say, but their story, like the writers and the creators, their story is that they created the show before the Matt Lauer thing got outed.
There's
and
no
it's
way.
so on the nose to Matt Lauer that I refuse to believe that there's no similarity. I think they're just trying not to get sued.
Yeah,
But,
that's
like,
exactly what I was gonna say.
It was like watching the Matt Lauer story.
Yeah,
it was
no way
bonkers.
because Jennifer Aniston's character is so Savannah Guthrie.
Yes.
And Matt Lauer, I mean Steve Carell's character is so Matt Lauer. And the Reese Witherspoon she feels like a good mix of a Fox News, tough girl, conservative that they dye her hair blonder. She's not at all Hoda Kotb, but she's definitely like a field reporter.
She's a nod to.
Yeah. She's a nod. She's an investigative journalist that they throw behind the anchor desk. Where Hoda Kotb obviously has been an anchor her entire career and has been, a huge award-winning journalist. So they kind of combined a bunch of different characters or people to make that character. But I'm sorry, anyone who says that Reese Witherspoon is a one-trick pony and can't, is not a good actress.
She's amazing.
Who says that?
A lot of people are critical.
Really?
She's only done romantic comedies other than, the Ring of Fire movie where she won.
That was good too, but she was a little like they
Well,
did.
I mean, the Legally Blonde probably put her in a cat box.
I will die on the hill that Legally Blonde is like my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah,
like
you can do Legally Blonde and play June Carter Cash and do Morning Show.
Yeah,
and then we just saw her.
Amazing.
What was the other one?
She's got her own like docu series type thing on.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I mean I saw the previews, but I haven't watched it.
It's good. Yeah. Like her interview with Dolly Parton was amazing, and
do we just love Dolly Parton?
Oh my god,
isn't she just a national treasure?
She's the best. She just donated another million books to her illiteracy program for children. I just love her.
She's amazing, and then her she has a documentary too on herself on Netflix, and it's really interesting to see.
She made what's his name on the Late Show cry? Not Steve Carell, the other one.
Bill Maher?
No, the one who took over for David Letterman.
Not Gordon.
Who took over for David Letterman?
The one who used to be on the Daily Show.
Not Jon Stewart.
Not Jon Stewart.
Not Steve Colbert.
Stephen Colbert.
Stephen Colbert. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, which is funny because I got Colbert and Carell mixed up.
Yes. Yeah. He did. That's right.
We just all had a very collective brain blank.
We just promoted like 4 late night shows, which is great.
Yeah. that was our purpose. We didn't have we knew what we were doing. That was all.
It was all on purpose.
Yeah. Well, speaking of education and people that we love, I'm going back to this for a minute because, and I think this will be our last topic because I want to say how nice. Where is she? How nice it will be to have. I keep doing this. To have a doctor and teacher at the top of the federal government. Goodbye, Betsy DeVos. Hello, Dr. Joe Biden.
Cruella de
Outing
Vil.
Betsy DeVos was like the best thing ever. We really haven't celebrated that enough.
No.
We're all ding dong, the witch is dead about Trump, but can we just talk about how we got
We haven't
umbrage
even
out of
gone
their joke?
down the list of people. I mean,
No more Pence, no more DeVos, no, like it's amazing.
No more Ivanka, no more Jared, no
yeah,
more.
but I mean,
Ivanka was useless.
Mitch McConnell's wife being the head of transportation, and her and her sister own an import-export company. Betsy DeVos, what is her company own? Something about loan.
Charter schools.
I know. Yeah.
So I mean, all these
Or Ben
they're
Carson.
like, oh my gosh, Trump's gonna drain the swamp. He's the one who plugged up the swamp and
All the alligators.
Swamp. He is the swamp. So
Oh,
this
Swampy.
this group of people, these four people, are between the four of them. So we have Dr. Jill Biden. We have Doug
The first
Ernhoff,
gentleman.
the second gentleman.
The first, second gentleman. No, he's the first gentleman.
The first ever second gentleman.
Oh, yes.
And then we have, of course, the president-elect and vice president-elect, Biden and Harris. Between the four of them, we have a Catholic, the second Catholic ever to be elected president. We have a woman as vice president. She's the first Black and the first Asian to hold that position, and the first woman, obviously. Doug, her husband Doug, is Jewish. Dr. Biden is the first doctor to be the first lady who is a doctor, the first lady who is the second first lady who is a teacher, who's actively a teacher.
Yeah.
She's a college professor. So is Doug. He's a legal professor.
Her PhD's in education, not medical, right?
Mhm.
Correct. Yes, but
I mean,
Yeah.
just
she's a PhD. Yeah, Dr.
Right.
Dr. Jill Biden. So it's a multi-racial, multifaceted, multi-educated.
I would say in a highly educated group of people.
Oh my God,
Right.
they're amazing. And not only that, the election in general is historic wins for women, Native Americans,
gay and transgender.
I'm sorry?
Gay and trans.
Yeah, LGBTQ, Blacks, Asians, the Latinx community. Is it Latinx or Latinx? I always
say Latinx.
I hear both, and so I want to make sure I say it correctly. So yeah, but the speeches from Joe and Kamala, their acceptance speeches were amazing. They thanked their volunteers, which I will admit I was a volunteer. I canvassed for them. I canvassed across the board for Blue as much as I could. But they thanked their volunteers. They thanked their staff. Neither one of them took credit. They thanked each other, which I thought was huge. Whereas, just 4 years ago, the acceptance speeches were, I'm the best at this, and I did that. And,
Yeah.
I alone will get it done, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
So I thought that was huge. That needs to be celebrated. But the fact that they mentioned multiple genders in their acceptance speeches, they mentioned the LGBTQ community several times. Each of them did. Both of them did, I should say. And they mentioned transgender rights several times as part of their platform. I thought was amazing and historic. And that needs to be.
It is historic.
Yeah. And Native Americans and women on both tickets, blue and red, had historic wins, which I thought was huge.
Yes.
And I do think it's a little not jarring, but off-putting that so many Native Americans ran on the Republican ticket. But if you look at their counties, if you look at their where they ran,
yeah, it probably makes more sense.
I really feel like it's because that's the seat that was open.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, well, if I want to win,
then I need to do this.
I need to run in the spot that's open. Yeah. But it was a huge win for history. And I think that's very cool. I want to, if you guys are interested, I want to hear your takes on kind of the, not just the federal, the four people behind me, but I want to
All
hear
of it.
yeah, your take on all of it.
I am feeling right now, I'm just trying to like roll around in some joy. Do you know what I mean? Like we've just had so much exhaustion and angst and emotional labor, and it's just been this fight, fight, fight all the time. And for like the first time in years, that whole community of crazies is, and I say I'm allowed to say crazy because I'm a crazy. That whole community of people has just been quiet. It's
Yeah.
the first, like the last 2 days are the first time I've logged onto the internet and not been bombarded with like angry, hateful chaos. It's just been this sweeping sense of joy and relief. And so, yes, there's this thing in the back of my head of like, we're not done.
Right.
It's like, I don't know if you guys play D&D, but it's like being on a D&D campaign and you've just beat like kind of a big boss, but
Right.
you're not at the end of the campaign yet. And so you're taking like a little bit of a break and you're in the tavern and you're having a good time and you're like having the joy and you're going to move forward into the rest of that campaign with that joy and that rest and that new sense of purpose. But we're not done. And I'm not a liberal. I'm very progressive. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be one of those people that's like not ready to shut up about the issues that still matter. Like
Right.
Biden in the White House is not a fix,
No.
but it does really make the fight a lot easier.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I shared a picture last night of it's a I don't want to say it wrong, so I'm not going to, but it's on my Facebook page, and I'll share it on our Facebook page for the show. It's a painting of Joe Biden sewing the American flag back together.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
That's another one.
it's the point is he's not going to fix the flag. He's not going to fix the country in a way that it's perfect, but he's going to try. And that's so much more than his predecessors done.
and he's going to put people in power that will help. So that's the thing, is it's less even about Joe Biden. Like he's just like honestly, he's kind of just a placeholder for the other folks that will help us get this work done. And I think now what we need to be working on is we really need to be actively engaged in dismantling this two-party system. Like I
Yes.
really like
100%.
the election was not the time to do it. I was one of these people that was like an angry, loud-mouthed, please do not vote third party and ruin this for us.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
I get people who were like, don't tell me how to vote. I get
Exactly.
people who were like, do not coerce me into voting for your candidate. I did not feel represented by either candidate, so I understand it. I'm not a big fan of coercion. I love consent, but also like the election was not the time, because let's say it worked. Let's say we got a third party president in. The government is still two party. So you would
Right.
have a very ineffectual person,
Yeah.
and we would just have more fighting and more discord.
Right.
We had to like calm some of that down. We had to stop the bleeding. And now that we've stopped the bleeding, now is the time. Right now, we take a break, we get our rest, and then we get back out there, because we need to start dismantling some of these systems that have us all fucked up in the first place.
Right. And that's, and historically, the closest we've ever gotten to having a third party candidate, Ross Perot was essentially a Republican.
Yes.
He was essentially a Republican with some very liberal ideas. And we had Ralph Nader, who was hated so much by both parties. And whether you liked him or not, the two parties hated him so much, he never would have gotten anything done had he won the presidency.
Bernie.
Well, and Bernie he's independent, but he ran as a Democrat. So,
well, because when he ran as an independent the first time, it just wiped him out too quickly.
Right.
So then he came back and said, all right, fine, I'll play the fucking game. This is what's open.
Right.
But we're just not ready for that yet. Like, there are pockets of people who are screaming, this is what's necessary, but we have to think about the whole group is not ready yet.
Right. Yeah. And I want to go, because you brought up Bernie, toxic masculinity. Hillary Clinton had pneumonia, and the media acted like she was at death's door. Bernie Sanders literally had a heart attack, and they covered it for 30 minutes.
Right.
Yep.
80-something years old. 80-something years old, literally had a heart attack, and they talked about it for 30 minutes on one news cycle. Hillary, 70, barely. And had
no. She's
at the time. At the time,
yeah. Okay.
Barely had pneumonia, and they talked about she had pneumonia for 2 weeks. That's like the cycle of pneumonia.
And she wasn't even sure.
Right.
Yeah, she wasn't that. She was sick, but like she wasn't dying. She was just
she
was
was walking to her car, and she went, and she was going to pass out, and
Yeah.
that was
Bless her
the
heart.
extent of our visual of her being sick.
Walking
And they just
pneumonia
ran that image over and
Yeah.
over
Over
and
and
over.
over, yeah.
Look at this weak woman.
for
Yeah, she'll
4
never be able to
weeks.
sustain.
They
Yeah,
talked about it for 4 weeks. She had walking pneumonia for really a week, and really it was in her system for maybe 2. They talked about it for over a month. And yeah, I'm sorry, Bernie had a he had a
Gender
literal
roles
heart
for
attack.
everybody.
yeah,
He had a literal heart attack.
yeah.
And it's nothing against Bernie.
No.
That's how toxic
Yes.
gender
Yes.
politics are.
Yes.
So,
Yes. 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 Yes.
yeah.
And
I don't.
go ahead.
I don't love Kamala for like reasons, but I love that we are in a place in history where we have a woman of color in
Yeah.
the White House. Like that she exists in that space
Yeah.
says a lot about what's possible. So some of her policies I'm not a fan of. I mean, I have mixed feelings. Some of her policies
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of. She hasn't been great for everybody. I get the criticisms, but let's just take a minute to really honor and hold space for what is possible with a panel of people like what's behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to duck out of the way again to
That's good.
let's just
Well,
observe that. Yeah.
And let me say, when it was called, I had just gotten home. The TV was on. They called it. I had the same. It's funny because Biden wasn't my pick. Actually, Kamala was my pick, and because I didn't. I mean, I love Pete, and I just didn't think that everybody was going to get behind him, and that it was a possible loss, right? And I think that I'm going to go into the weeds and come back, but I know I mean I know that Pete's going to be in the cabinet, right? Um, and I believe he's going to take quite a few of the people who ran, and I know he's requested them to be a part of the administration. And whether they leave their seat, I mean, I think that's the biggest concern for most of them is, do they want to leave their seat and leave it open to losing, getting it, somebody appointed that's Republican because it's a Republican governor or whatever. So I think that's going to be the issue. But I think there's a lot of people he's going to tap into that are going to be so diverse and representative of the country, which is the biggest and best thing. And I know the Obamas were in the background doing whatever they could. I know Hillary was in the background. I'm not sure about Bill, but I know Hillary was in the background doing, whatever she could. My thing is, what was my thing? I don't know. Oh, so when they told, I mean, Biden wasn't my first choice, and when he was doing the debates, I had concerns, and I wasn't really. I mean, I really was leaning towards Kamala out of the entire group, but you know, because of our two-party system, when it eventually comes to those two people, and there's no third person. When Jorgensen, okay, well, what does anybody know? I mean, does anybody know enough? It wasn't like Ross Perot, where he had so much money and he was out there campaigning. As a
Right.
little kid, I remember Ross Perot, so that's how effective he was. We don't have that right now. So for somebody to send their vote to somebody else outside of those two people, it's a throwaway vote. I mean, you've really just thrown your vote away. So
Yeah.
they called it. It was like, even though, I mean, it wasn't like when Obama ran, because I remember when Obama spoke at the DNC in 2006. Was it 2006 or
First
2000?
time he spoke, I think it was 04.
The first time he made a speech, and it was, I mean, when I was listening to it, and I was like, he's going to be president.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You knew it. You knew it in your gut. You knew it. And when they called it for him, I remember exactly where I was. I was in South Beach, and I mean, Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City walked in with our girlfriend. I mean, it was like the most. I was like, I don't know what to be. If
What a day.
Cynthia walks in, I'm gonna faint.
So much excitement.
I know it's overload. So, but I mean, I cried, I was smiling, and I was jumping up and down. I mean, it was just like I couldn't contain myself. And I know people were upset and around me, and then there's some neighbors that were upset, and I feel for them.
Yeah.
I don't understand I don't understand what their appeal to Trump was or has been.
Yeah.
It's
I
been
don't either.
nothing but exactly what you said. I mean, I felt like weight lifted. I felt like sun came out. I felt like
Yeah.
Yes. So I have this friend who I'm not going to say their name, but their status on Facebook was Democrats think that Biden will unite us. How is that supposed to happen when Democrats have been calling Republicans racist, xenophobic, homophobic for years? Sorry, but it's a people problem, not a president problem. And like, I was like, okay, so you're more worried about the name calling than the behavior that prompted the name calling.
Right. Yeah.
But
Right.
that was the disconnect. But
It's,
I'll tell
it's like
you,
fixing
like,
the symptoms rather than fixing
Stop being homophobic and
the
racist and
problem.
yeah, stop
xenophobic.
being xenophobic, homophobic, and racist, and we'll stop calling you xenophobic. But yeah,
Right.
and I thought this is a person who doesn't see those qualities in themselves,
Right.
and so they're feeling like attacked, like, oh, this doesn't apply to me. And what I encourage people to do when that defensiveness comes up is like examine where it's coming from. Like if you're feeling called out by somebody saying Republicans are racist, if it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you.
Right.
Exactly.
If you're feeling like it does, you're the one, like that's in you, and maybe you need to like listen to that. And so yes, it is a people problem. Yes, this is these people, like people who are racist and xenophobic and homophobic and bigoted, they're not just going to magically disappear because Trump isn't there. But what Trump did was he created this environment where it empowered people to say and do these really just shitty things.
He gave them cover.
Yes, and it was like, this is socially acceptable and you can't call me on it or you're a snowflake. And like now what I think will happen with, I don't think Biden's just going to magically eradicate racism. Like that's not a thing. But like I do think that the culture is going to start shifting. We've already noticed overnight we see less people feeling comfortable being so loud and bigoted. Like all of a sudden that dull roar of Trump anger has just, I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but like I'm just not seeing it or hearing it at all. It's like they just, and do I want there to be individual shifts? Yes. But I honestly think that like there's an older generation of folks that we just need to let them live their curmudgeon lives and just, we need to stop putting energy there. Like stop fighting with your grandpa about his racism. What difference does it fucking make?
It's not going to change.
Instead, instead.
There's only got a few years left.
Yeah.
Just channel that energy
Sad to
instead
think.
into these beautiful young people who were the ones who like in droves came out to vote. Beautiful young people who are having these brilliant conversations about what the world is going to look like. Like that is where we need to be like taking these lessons we're learning and empowering this generation of folks like that's coming up. Those are the people we need to be like, give them the mic, give them the seat, give them the space, like let them, because the dinosaurs are dying out. So we need to stop fighting them. Just let them die.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll say, Biden was not one of my top 10. When we had 20 people running on the Democratic side, Biden was not my top 10. Kamala was in my top 3. So combined, they made a great ticket for me. And that first time they walked out of the DNC together, arm in arm, and there's that famous photo of them looking in I don't forget which reporter it is. They're looking in the window, and the reporter takes their picture. And I photoshopped that in front of the White House, and I said, "This is going to be the ticket," because I knew. I said, "That's going to be the ticket." I don't know why I knew that, but I thought that's it.
Intuition,
I guess. And I said, "That's it. That's the ticket." I just had a feeling she was friends with his son, Bo, and I just knew there's such
when he was mulling it over, I thought it was going to be her too.
There's such a history between the two families. I just knew they would make a great ticket if they wanted to be. And so to me, they're the perfect merge of old and new, Democratic ticket. And it's what our country needs to help start the healing. Like it's not magic. It's gonna start the healing. And I think they'll have some Republicans in their cabinet, and I think they should. Some progressive Republicans, I think will help. But
I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think that will be great.
We got to start bridging some gaps here.
Yeah, we do.
Exactly. So I thank you guys for indulging me in that conversation. Professor Seth?
I just want to say I think he's going to be like the conductor of the orchestra, and we're the people that have to do the work.
Yes.
Well, he said he sees his presidency as a transition. Which I think is smart. He's not going in saying he's going to be, the healer in chief. He's going to be, he said he's going to be the transition in chief. And I think that's smart. He's not taking it all on. He's guiding, Professor Sex, you have a new production company you're working on. I don't want to
Yes.
try to force you to do all this into a 30-second elevator pitch, but tell us as much as you can in the short time we have left, and then I want to have you back on when it's up and running.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we are launching a new website for Professor Sex. And then the secondary project is Steve, who is my husband. We have started a production company called 11 Stag Productions.
He's very sexy, and I've seen him without pants on.
He's a real piece.
Yeah.
So yeah. Definitely. If you haven't gone and like cyber stalk Steve yet, do yourself a favor. he's a good looking man. But we have started. So our company is 11 Stag Production. It's an anagram of Steve and Angel. Is 11 stags. Like I got my stag necklace on. But what a lot of the work we've been doing with Professor Sex has really been helping create content, helping other businesses and other organizations create content. And so as much as like I have my own things that I would like to spend time doing, a lot of what's been funding these projects has been the production work we've been doing for other people. And so we've ended up with this little mini studio in the house, and where it's been amazing. And so it just started getting to be so much work that instead of focusing on trying to get like individual clients, because a lot of people just don't have, because I can't bill people's insurance the way a therapist can. So a lot of people just don't have access to pay the fees I would need to charge to have that be my only source of income. But I don't want to like bar people from that education either. So we're like, we need to get the money from somewhere else. And so this production company has really like taken off, and it gives me the opportunity to still be educating and meeting folks where they are. So, because that's the goal, right? Just
Right.
help people.
I love
Right.
it. So put your logo on stuff and start selling it, and we'll start buying it, and we'll tell
Yes.
our viewers to buy it, and that'll make you extra money. And
I'm
then
excited. Yeah. The new site will have a store. So it'll be we'll have merch, but we'll also have like a lot of people ask me for like product recommendations, especially like related to like intimacy products, sex toys, books, that kind of thing. So the store is going to be a place where I curate my favorite stuff, so that when I make a recommendation, there's like a one-stop space, and you'll know that I've taken the time to like source out something. There's like a reason behind it, and there'll be education provided for things. So it's going to be like a very robust system. So we're hopefully getting that launched really soon. My goal was like, my birthday is December 18th. So my goal was to launch it by my birthday. So maybe now that I've said it out loud, I can like manifest that.
in the
But
universe, you have to now. Yeah, it's in the universe.
I think you'll do it. I had a blog that I did on my birthday on my 35th, and I did the same thing. I was like, I have to do it by my birthday.
this
So
is the date.
you'll do it.
So I want multi-use. My big thing is like multi-use, like Swiss Army knife kind of like multi-use tools. So I would like a travel mug that has like a thing on the side that like it detaches and becomes like a vibrator. Like that's like my thing. Like it doesn't
A
have to
travel
be,
mug that's also a fleshlight.
yeah.
That's
it doesn't have
exactly
to
where I was
be-
gonna.
It doesn't have to be that, but I'm just saying like
We were
something like
love
it's
it.
like it's a coaster, but it's also a condom or like whatever. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean that'd be a one-use coaster, but I'm just saying,
That's
you know, yeah, whatever. I don't know.
I'll
Something.
keep an eye out for
It's-
Swiss Army knife. We'll have the Swiss Army knife section of the toy store. And
It's a scarf and handcuffs. I don't know.
yes. That's just creativity. I'm telling you, just get creative. Like we call those pervertibles. When you take like normal things from your environment and you do them for sexy purposes, we call that pervertibles. So sometimes I'll tell couples like
I
date
love
night will be like you each have a $15 limit and you got to go through Target, and anything you buy you're going to use in the bedroom that night.
So it's like a convertible, pervertible.
It's
Like,
yeah, it's
oh,
called pervertibles.
I
Yeah, and it's
love
I
like
love it.
I
love
bought a
it.
wooden spoon at Target, and guess what I'm going to do with it later? Yeah, like
Yeah.
so.
I bought Dollar Tree handcuffs and a cap gun. Okay.
Ooh.
Figure that out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, Sheriff. So yeah, professorsex.com. You can go there now, but it's gonna like the new site. The biggest thing that
I
prompted
think
the
you
new
just
site
hit
is
my microwave.
that's good. I like it. You're blushing. It's good. The blog wasn't searchable before, and it made me crazy because we had all this content. I would send people, and I'm like, I wouldn't spend any time on this blog.
Oops, sorry.
I know he's a mess.
I love it. So the new blog will be searchable. We'll have a store. We'll have more content. We'll launch so we've got things. It's in the works. Go to professorsex.com now. You can sign up for the newsletter. And I've never used the newsletter function, but as soon as we launch things, I'll use it.
She's trying to talk serious.
It's okay. I can do both. I can do both things.
No one's paying attention to me. They're listening
Everybody
to her.
is. The mouth was amazing. Like that. I wanted to see what, like, if it was gonna go all the way in, like a snake, like unhinges its jaw, and like just swallows up.
I actually
Unhinged.
I have a trick jaw. I actually do. It does kind of.
Ow.
It
I know. It's like
That hurts to think about.
I can't. Never mind. Wait. Okay. So this is.
we could go on for hours.
This is a really
I'm
cute.
sure.
This is a really cute tissue box that looks like it's made out of jeans. It's not.
Yes.
But,
Yeah, that would be a great fleshlight too.
Look at you. Oh my God. Is this the like gay man equivalent of a woman putting her fist in her mouth?
Yes, I can't do my fist though because you know what, my hand is too big. But I can do other things.
Twitter talk. That's Twitter talk.
That's what he said.
You know the peanut butter. I forget what they're called. Not Nutty Buddies. Those are the peanut shaped ones. But the peanut
Nutter butters.
Nutter bars. Is that what they are? They look like wafers, but they're long. Like they're.
Nutter butter.
No, Nutter butters are.
No, Nutter butters are
shaped.
cookies.
Yeah, peanut shaped cookies. These are the bars. They're like wafers.
Yeah, and they look like a lattice shaped.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
They're like a Snickers.
Kind of, but it's like a wafer with peanut butter and chocolate.
Yeah. So I was at a friend's house and he handed me one because I don't eat red meat. I don't eat any animals with hooves or claws. I just eat poultry and seafood. But I always make the joke that I'll eat a steak if you put peanut butter on it because I'm like a peanut butter fiend. And so he handed me I think they're called Nutty Bars. Now that I say that out loud. But he handed me a Nutty Bar and he's like, here, I want to see what you can do with this. And there were people in the room. So I was like, I'm going to impress people, right? So I took it and I went.
Throws people out, whatever.
It's like this long, right? Well, I can't there. It's like this long. And I went. And there was room left. But I felt it hit the back of my throat. And I went, just for a second, I went, oh, and my eyes started to water. And I was actually fine. But everyone started laughing, which made me want to laugh.
And then you're choking.
I didn't choke, but I had to use the back of my tongue to crush the wafer. Thank God it was a wafer and not like
Look at you with your skills.
Right. And not like if it had been like a Snickers,
we're talking 20 some odd years here.
I teach a blowjob class and I'm going to bring you next time.
I'll happily attend. But had it been like a Snickers, I probably would have gagged on it. But
you might have died.
Wafer,
yeah.
I could crush it. So
you said your peanut butter thing. All I could think of was that movie where the guy's like, does it count if it's your dog, if you put peanut butter on your balls and the dog licks it off? Get it? Because it's your dog. Is it Road Trip? But get it? Because it's your dog. Is that masturbating? Like,
talk about, never mind. I'm thinking like you talk about he just tubing his dog, but never mind.
Oh my God.
That's when you said that before. I was like,
no, it's worse. That's worse. That's worse.
Yeah. You, okay. David.
You, David. Ew.
You, David.
Ew.
Ew. Ew, David.
David.
David. Okay, so tell everyone again your website.
ProfessorSex.com.
Awesome.
And if you... God. Oh, the dog thing.
Definitely have to come back.
Yes, you have to come back.
Anytime. I had such a good time. This is so much fun.
As usual, if you guys want to reach out to us, you can always go to our Facebook page, click on the photo gallery, send us nudes, messages. Yeah, I know. Not actually
what you wish for.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. But yeah, go to Professor Sex.
Don't send me nudes.
No. Well, do recipes.
Okay, this is fun. So when people email the page, like there's a click to email, and it goes to like info@Professor Sex. Steve is actually the one who filters that. So I have like creepers who send me dick pics all the time and they have no idea that they're sending my husband dick pics and not me because he like just filters them out so I don't have to see them. So I'm like, I wish all these creepy men knew that they were sending dick pics to my husband because I wonder if that might change their behavior.
Just send them to us.
Yeah.
Just forward them on.
You just tubing your husband. I love it.
Tubing my husband.
So I have to tell Mike. I have to tell you, in all seriousness, when I saw Steven with no pants on, he was wearing boxers. He didn't know he didn't have pants on. Well, I mean, he did, but he didn't know I could see him.
He tubing himself a little.
Yeah, he didn't.
Oh, he walked into the shot.
He was helping me get set up.
He was fixing her microphone. He was fixing her mic. He didn't know he was fixing my mic.
He's
Anyway,
very good looking.
So you got a little microwave there, huh?
He's like kind of got a Jason Momoa-ish look, but he's got like a bear bod, and he's just like very. He's just like he's very good looking.
he's very cute. So I didn't know
It's
he was her
distracting.
husband when I first met him at UNF. I went to it was your awards thing.
Yeah.
I'd seen him on Facebook and I didn't make the connection in real
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, sometimes you see somebody in a picture and you're like, oh, I know him, but I don't know how I know him. And I walked up to him at the little buffet thing, and I was like, "Hey!" And you're like, "Oh, he's cute and I'm friendly." And I was like, "Hey!" And he was like, "Hey,
He
Mike!"
loves
And
being flirted with.
I was like, "How does he know me?" And then I was like, "Oh shit, that's her husband." I was like, "Oh."
You can still flirt.
I
I'm a good
did, but
wingman.
it takes a little bit of wind out of your sails when you
It
realize,
does when you're like, oh
yeah,
wait, I'm
yeah,
friends with your partner. Like,
yeah,
no, that should be a boost.
right,
I
yeah,
have an
right,
in.
exactly.
I have an in.
I know, but I was there for you, so I couldn't in good consciousness flirt oh, I'm here to watch your wife get an award.
He is so much fun to flirt with. So
Oh,
next
I
time
know
you
he
get the
is. Yeah. Well,
opportunity,
now that I have a rapport with him, now
yes,
we're buds.
he's a lot of fun to flirt with. He's a
Yeah.
very good flirt. So
He's really good. Yeah. But anyway,
I'm just
so
pimping my husband out on the show. He's gonna start getting letters.
he's like, why? He's like, why did you spend so much time talking about me at the end? Well, because it was the end and we ran out of stuff to talk about, and he's such a great sport. So anyway,
The objectify Steve portion of the show.
yeah, exactly. Anyway, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. We love you,
Thank
and we want to
you.
have you back when your site is up, when everything is up and
When
ready
everything's ready to launch, we'll do it
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
Absolutely.
December 18th is my
18th.
birthday. So
send her birthday greetings on Facebook and check out her new website then, and we will have you have you back on the show. So thank you so much. Love you. Thanks for coming on, Mike. Thanks as always, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Bye, guys.
Bye.